All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the crypto market analysis. Once again, a quick update. Our Discord, which is generally private, I've opened it up for the public for everyone to come join us and have all the channels be completely open. If you look within our Discord, you'll see all the channels you have access to. You can peek in, you can talk, you can share your ideas, ask questions, anything that you have on your mind, you can discuss in our Discord. The link is below in the YouTube description. Make sure you click on it, make sure you join, come hang out with us, because we got a lot more people joining every single day. And we are getting busy for the end of the year for 2021. And we're going to map out all the things that we're expecting for the end of the year, as well as all the things that we're expecting for 2022. So let's get started. By the way, if you're not familiar with our community, again, I provide updates on a day-to-day basis within Bitcoin analysis, within the altcoin analysis, all these different channels, which are analysis channels. I talk about what I'm seeing in the market and what you should be paying attention to. Aside from that, I have an advantage announcements area where I provide updates with videos 2 times a day. So here's, for example, yesterday, right? In the morning, my morning time, I provide an update just like I'm doing a video right now. And then the evening time, we summarize all the things that have happened through the day and how exactly did the daily candles close on these respective altcoins or BTC, et cetera. And then on top of that, I do updates for my 5K challenge. For example, yesterday I took on a Ethereum long position worth $25,000. I do this pretty much live in real time, and I show people exactly how I trade. This is not meant for you to copy trade, so do not take it as that. You will get completely destroyed if you do copy trade anyone, really. This is merely for your education and for your supplemental analysis. Okay, so the 5K account, if you're not familiar with it, we basically started the beginning of the year with $5,000 and then grew it through the entire year. And currently we sit at $31,500 as of 2 days ago. Okay, so that's more than a 6x growth for pretty much the entire year. We're pretty happy with this progress. And we've done a good job by managing our risk, never FOMOing or panicking in and out of positions. A lot of people come to our community because they're simply looking for a way to try to reduce their massive risk or massive mistakes that they make. It's not that, you can't find great trading opportunities here and there on your own. It's rather that once you do find those, how do you stop yourself from losing the money that you've made in the market? And I think this is where our community does a good job, which is managing that risk properly, making sure that you don't over leverage your positions, making sure you don't just buy into random shit coins here and there, and just being able to look at the market from a larger holistic point of view without your emotions clouding your judgment. So if you're looking for a community like that, again, Discord is free right now. Come hang out with us. All right. Talk about whatever you're dealing with. Talk about things that you're working on. So anyway, let's get started. All right. Let's talk about the analysis on BTC so far. So yesterday we were sitting at these lows right here, and I talked about the fact that in this particular area, I did not see price staying below this low right as we head into the US market hours open. So we were here, and the market for the US session opened somewhere around here, and we got a big pump in the market. Okay. And I mapped this out right here in Bitcoin analysis. Okay. I mentioned this yesterday. I was like, okay, I'd say this sweep below the weekly open, as you can see, we were right there. I was thinking that more than likely this was a forced push, and that it's quite possible to break back above the weekly open and quite possibly head to $50,000 or $50,300. Okay. You can kind of see price overshot that. Like I was only aiming back towards this particular area, which is previous support, nuke down. And I was thinking this would be resistance on the way up, right? We actually broke through that and went higher. But the point is that we hit the target that I was intending for price to hit. all the way from down here. How do we know this? Because I do analysis on this kind of information, which is heat map data, recognizing what's happening in the open interest, recognizing what's happening in the CVD data. And this helps us get a larger view of the market in terms of what exactly could be happening in the smaller time frame of price action, and who is going to be placed off sides and who is going to get pressured out of their position. And this to me was more than likely a pressure situation where in this particular low right here that we saw yesterday, right, it just seems like abnormal selling. And I expected price to mean revert on the way up, especially leading into the US session. There's another unique point, which Alex Kruger had mentioned, which I want to show you all real quick, okay? Because it's a pretty important point. I got to check this out as well. So he talked about, here's a little trick. When markets bleed overnight, make sure to be at your desk by 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right? So right now, I'm in Central, so that means this is already 9. So I typically get up around 6 to 7 Central, so that's already too late. But the point is that in such extreme cases, when you have big volatility, right, generally the market tends to mean revert or change direction by the time the US traders come over and just take over the market. So this leading into the US market session was a market that was trending down. And as the US traders saw this, they picked it up, boom, ran it back up. Again, today, guess what? In this particular area, US markets are not open, not until another 30 minutes. I would figure if that logic were to hold, I'd see another pop in the market, maybe back towards 50,000, maybe even higher. Okay. So these are important points and data points to keep an eye on if you are a active trader in the market. Now, I generally don't actively trade on every single data point that I see where I see potential squeezes in and out of the market. If I am able to get in and position myself properly with decent stops and decent risk reward trades, I will probably do so. For example, yesterday, like I said, I took on a Ethereum long trade, right? One of the reasons why I decided to take on the Ethereum long trade right up here around 4,400 or so was because simply ETH chart here still looks decent. It may look like it's a developing head and shoulders pattern, but I like the fact that ETH in this particular area has been holding up much, much better than BTC and definitely better than most other altcoins. All right. So I was thinking in this area that, okay, even if I go long here and price comes back, I'm okay with having a stop down here because I personally think that price may do something like this, fake out head and shoulders, and then start to push back up. Now, I'm not obviously sure of that yet. Okay. So I took on a smaller position here. And if it comes back here, I'll tag on to that position and I'll have an average somewhere in the middle right here. And I'm hoping that by the time this thing comes down here, it starts to show that aggressive selling is happening in this area. It's being absorbed and price turns back around. And I will know this by once again, looking at open interest, CVD data, and recognizing if there are things within the heat map showing me that there are some significant players in BTC or Ethereum absorbing that pressure. Okay. So anyway, I am long ETH right now. My stop is way the heck down here around 3,800. I don't ever take on significant size. People like to take on, 10x, 20x leverage. We keep it, less than 1, sometimes, maybe 2, 2.5 at most. Okay. But we always make sure that the stops are set to ensure that even if there's, random days where you have insane volatility, that you're not stuck in a position that you don't want to be a part of. Okay. So anyway, let's take a look at other assets. Matic. How's Matic looking? Now, I mentioned Matic before because we still have that Polygon, ZK effect coming up. I think it already happened maybe yesterday, and I think it may be happening today as well. But the point is that this is going to be a significant event for Matic. I think it's also going to be a great event for ETH because I know the Ethereum Foundation, Ethereum network is going to benefit from this ZK proof, zero knowledge as well as Matic, which is a L2 layer on top of Ethereum, right? So I'm thinking that both Matic and Ethereum are going to benefit off that price action. I think over the last few days, Matic has clearly benefited much more than ETH, but I still don't think Matic is done yet. I actually think that it's going to take out this high at some point up here, so possibly closer to $3 or something like that. As long as it doesn't break back inside 221, I'm still okay just hanging on to that position. I have a spot position in Matic, which I let my Advantage members know around 206, 207, somewhere around this area. So we're up in decent profit, like 10, 12%. But ideally, again, want to stay above 221, and then we can start talking about, $3 and beyond. Okay. From a simple fib extension basis, all right, you could kind of just map it out. Let's just do this area because this wick did not occur on every exchange. So we'll just do this low as a low of this fib high to low, all right? So the extension to the upside that we get as a 1.618 extension is about $4, right? $4.16. Generally, when an asset is breaking out, I'm looking towards 1.618, 2.0 extensions. If it can break above previous all-time high and really smash and hold above it. More often than not in BTC, what we've seen as of late is the inability to stay above that previous all-time high. Let me give you some examples. BTC, multiple times we tried to break above this previous all-time high. First rejection, higher high, second rejection, right? We see this as an expanded flat because this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave Elliott wave count completed. Then this is your A, B, and your larger C, which is your larger expanded flat correction. So from here, now, if this is a large 1, then that means this is a quick 2. And that means we should be aiming for a larger 3 as per the Elliott wave count. Okay, I'm not a big Elliott wave fan, but sometimes you can see the counts, like the wave counts, 1 through 5 impulsive counts and the ABC corrections. They work pretty darn well, right? So when it's obvious like that and you don't have to force the wave counts, I generally like to start mapping out Elliott wave counts. Now, on a daily basis, the one thing that is very abundantly clear in this area is this is previous, support. Now on the way up is going to be resistance, right? A couple of days back, I made a video. I talked about this little pocket right here, more than likely being resistance on the way up, anywhere between 51.5 to about 53.7. You could see we're sharply rejecting that level, okay? Unable to climb above. And the candle structure is kind of telling us that, first you have seller absorption right here, shoots back up. Then you have the final, daily gravestone doji, sort of just a bad looking sell pressure candle right there. Then you have, this is your hanging man candle, right? Hanging man's this red candle right here. They're supposed to be kind of like pause or reversal candles of a trend. Okay, so this is indicating to you that, hey, from here, we might have another bit of a leg down. Okay, just given the fact that how all this looks. If it does head down, then we have to start paying attention to the hourly time frame and start to recognize where are the support levels. Because we're not holding above the weekly open, right? We're struggling. So where are the support levels? Well, first level, so we already swept this. So that would have been the first level. I mean, we're still sitting on top of that level, right? If we can stay above this level, smash above the weekly open, once again, we can head back towards these highs and possibly this high, okay? But as long as we stay above the weekly open, think of that as a key level that if we stay under it, you should be expecting, more downside. That means we head back towards this low, and then we start heading lower towards this low, towards this liquidity right here, and then final, which is way the heck down here. I think it's entirely possible to sweep all this stuff, then pop back up and start to head back up. Okay, so as of right now, I'm not in a BTC position. If I were to have exposure to the long side, I'd rather take on the momentum of this Polygon Matic stuff, as well as how good this ETH USD chart looks compared to BTC, and even this ETH BTC chart, which is, in my opinion, a fantastic way to express exposure to the long side on Ethereum and not BTC. Okay, if I were to take a short anywhere, it'd probably be BTC. If I were to take the long side, it's probably ETH. It's as simple as that. Okay. We already talked about a while back global charts, right? Open interest. This is global open interest, which is expression of all open interest futures open interest in all cryptos. Okay. One thing I mentioned a while back was, in April, when the open interest was significantly high up here, we were talking about the market being extended. If you were part of our community back then, we warned y'all multiple times. I decided to take profit through my positions in April and even in May. And then you could see we had significant drop in open interest, all the way to a tune of going from the highs of 44, 46 billion to a low of $20 billion. I mentioned to y'all the same thing at the beginning of November, which is open interest is getting really high. Over here, funding was also really high, right? Remember, we pay attention to funding by checking out CoinGlass. So you can go to CoinGlass and you can check out funding rates right here. Okay, this is your hour-to-hour, day-to-day funding. Funding back then was extremely high. Now it's actually far more beneficial for longs because the funding has turned negative. Okay, negative funding is an implication of shorts being aggressively sort of shorting. They're paying to keep on their short positions, and they're paying money to the people on the long side. So if the market is positioned where you're paying funding from the short side to the long side, funding is negative, and the market structure doesn't really look all that bad, whether it's in BTC or Ethereum or most of these other altcoins, right? It doesn't look terrible. So what could be the position that's most offsides? Well, it's probably the fact that we might have another squeeze on the way up if this negative funding rate keeps persistent. All right, it's as simple as that. So you got to check what exactly is the position that is least noted right now, which is probably the fact that if the market pushes up higher, you may have sort of another short squeeze on the way up. It may not be super aggressive, but it will be aggressive to the point where more than likely this funding rate will be neutral. The shorts themselves will get squeezed out, which I'm hoping they would. And that would be probably more beneficial to the long side. So I'm thinking the market as a whole, as we head into the end of the week, right? We do have only one catalyst event that's coming up tomorrow, and that's the CPI data that's coming up. Let me show you all real quick. Here's the Friday CPI data, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is probably going to cause somewhat of some rocky volatility in the market as we head into the rest of today and maybe even tomorrow. But honestly, I think CPI data, for the most part, we already expect that there's going to be some persistent inflation. I know the Fed keeps talking about inflation is transitory, but it's not, clearly. So I could see the data, being somewhat of a surprise, but it's not going to be an extreme surprise. Okay. So I think it's going to be within the bounds of what most analysts are expecting, what Wall Street is expecting. And so with that, what I would probably figure is that by tomorrow, the market may feel like it's going to head down further, but it will maybe quickly turn around on some, expected CPI inflation data. That could be sort of the trigger that runs the market up. And that could be the trigger that resets this negative funding rate into neutral, maybe even positive funding rate. Okay. All right. Altcoins, for the most part, they're down on the day. Very few are up. The other thing I want to mention is in the near term, right? Even though I'm looking for longs and I don't really want to be short right now, it means that I'm looking for longs within the context of the structure that we're in. Not like I'm looking for Ethereum to start heading to 8,000 or Bitcoin to hit 100K or something like Spell to hit I don't know, 3 cents or something. Like I'm not expecting that at all. I'm taking this one day at a time, level to level, simply because when you see such a large destruction in open interest, and you see this market in open interest trending down, on top of that, you see BTC breaking its larger daily structure like this. Generally, you're going to have a slightly more prolonged consolidation, prolonged quote unquote bear market, even though from like a weekly standpoint, Ethereum has not hit a bear market per se. It's really, this is your previous consolidation. This is your previous consolidation. This sits on top of this. And this is merely sort of trying to retest this, right? So it's not the worst thing in the world. I would have liked for the fact that, this did not dig in so low, but it is what it is, right? As long as we can climb back above 51 over here and start trending up higher, I think all things are good. What we don't want to do is start to head back towards these lows right here. Then that means that we may be creating a larger consolidation, a larger correction, which may last probably several months. Okay. And that would probably, be the case for BTC and Matic and Ethereum and everything, really, basically all of crypto. All right. I think that's about it. I mean, total market cap, we often take a look at because it's the expression of all things related to crypto in one chart. Volume is really pointless in this particular situation, but what we pay attention to is just levels, right? Horizontal levels, because they're static, they help us understand exactly what we should be looking for from a level to level perspective. If you watched my video a few days back, when we started to reject this 2.58 level, I talked about next level of support as 2.45, and then more than likely coming back to 2.1 or mid-range right here. You can see we did both of that in this one daily candle. So as of right now, it's looking a little bit rough, but we already tagged this level. I think for the most part, we're going to try to build some sort of base here, consolidation. And then I'm hoping maybe end of December or January, we start pushing up in BTC. Other than that, I mean, we have, once again, MicroStrategy buying more BTC today. I think it was today or yesterday. I can't quite remember. Let me see. Michael Saylor. I think he definitely bought some BTC. He acquired, let me see, at an average price of 57,000. Okay, so he bought obviously a lot at a much higher price. So point is, they own 122,000 BTC at a 3.6 billion, price, or sorry, not price, an overall, value of all those BTC. And then average is 29,861. Okay, so clearly this guy just wants to keep buying. Either he's one of the smartest people of this decade, or he's going to kind of, burn in flames because of this big BTC bet. I'm not quite sure. Obviously, so far, he looks like a genius. So we're going to kind of follow all the things that people like MicroStrategy does, because if big players like Michael Saylor or big billionaires want to buy BTC, and even Jack Dorsey from Twitter supports Bitcoin, then there's really not anything to completely worry about in terms of a larger crash. I would say even this crash right here happened to be in a low liquidity, low volume environment. It happened on the weekend, so it seemed a little bit forced, more so just recognizing this is the time to sell because not a lot of people are going to pay attention. US traders are obviously not, active in trading. So that was probably the time where this big move was able to happen. Okay. And, the interesting thing about that, as BTC rolled over all this much, Ethereum really did not. It basically bought up most of this and stayed above this KSR level, right? Which is around 3,950, closer to $4,000. So this is one of the reasons why I think Ethereum probably overlooked, probably underrated as an asset right now. Okay. All right. That is pretty much it. Let me see if we have some questions from the chat. We got Matic, which I already talked about. LRC I'll cover. So again, loop ring, right? It's going to be somewhat beneficial for ETH, but also it's going to do well even when ETH suffers because of its own sort of L2, congestion, a decongestion strategy that Loopring proposes that it has. Don't quote me on the fundamentals, but the way I understand Loopring is that it is supposed to alleviate some of the congestions and some of the things on the Ethereum network during those high network activity time, during those high cost times. So Loopring generally does well, even when Ethereum doesn't do well. But when Ethereum does well, it kind of keeps, chugs along, right? It doesn't like completely nuke. It does relatively well on the side of ETH. So fundamentals aside, right? I think, the best way to look at this is, this is really actually, we're going to have to dig into the 4-hour time frame because I think it's a little bit tougher to identify this. I'd say this is probably the level that you want to be paying attention to, right? So this level right here is around $2.35 for Loopring. Previous support, deviation, comes back up, support, takes off. Once again, nukes it, resistance, comes back as a higher low, W bottom, pushes up, support at the same level, pushes up, right? Now, sometimes technical analysis could really be hocus pocus, but sometimes it works really, really well if you actually know what the hell you're doing, right? Because if you know what you're doing and you're able to identify levels like I just did, you would have been able to recognize this is a key SR level. You could have, recognized this would have been resistance. You could have shorted this back here, or you could have longed this from here. So point is, when it comes to technical analysis, you can only do so much with levels, right? Either they hold or they don't hold. Either it is support or it isn't. It's pretty much binary, right? So in this particular instance, right, this is really the area that LRC needs to hold. And by the looks of it, and by the looks of the overall pressure on the market, it doesn't look like it's going to hold today or maybe even tomorrow, but you might get a sweep, right? What you might have is possibly a sweep at 225. So it goes something like this, maybe climbs back up. And if it climbs back up above this level again, which is 235, then once again, this is possibly your long area. All right. Until then, I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't touch this until at least it starts to probably climb back above this high or this high for a confirmed long. Or you could take this long, from here up into this area. Okay. That's really how I would look at loop break. But this as a whole, what this has been doing, it kind of looks like a distribution to me, to be completely honest. Okay. So be careful in loop ring. I'm not quite sure what kind of pressure the market is, bringing on to altcoins. Maybe this has to do with this CPI data. Maybe the fact that we had a few days of a bounce and now we need to correct to the downside again, because overall we're still trending down. All this could be related, and this is the pressure that you're seeing in most of these alts from the sell side. All right, quick take at the ES. Let's check out the ES here. Okay, so remember, these the S&P futures, right? Still chopping along around this key high. I don't see a whole lot of, worry or concern in this particular area. If the low breaks, okay, then we might head down lower. But if the high breaks, all right, well, S&P 500 is doing what it's been doing the whole damn year, which is just putting in new all-time highs after new all-time highs, right? The other way to look at it is the 20-day EMA, which has been quite significant for the S&P 500 over the last year. Every time it breaks below the 20-day EMA, once it gets reclaimed, generally it's just starting to put in new all-time highs. Okay, so if you were to see, say, a further breakdown back inside the 20-day EMA and say this low gets taken out, which is around 44.90, all right, then we got to start worrying. Then we might have a larger correction in our hands. We might be heading down further. We might have something like this, which is almost a month and a half, sideways chop. But again, after that, new all-time highs. All right. Generally, November and December time are calmer months for the market, especially December. You may have a week or two here and there. There's some profit taking that happens. There's possibly, rotations happening for end of the year closures. People, within any big funds wanting to be prepared for 2022. But for the most part, talking to some fund managers, what they've generally talked about is December is really the month where most people don't really want to be forced to take on positions, and they don't want to really sell because they don't want to lock in the tax event to sell that position by the end of the year. So all they're really doing is they're hoping the market to stay steady. They're not even really looking to keep bids in the market to support price for the particular assets that they're buying. So liquidity is much, much, more drier in the US equity space. And I would figure it's probably drier in the crypto space as well, given the fact that we've obviously seen such a big, open interest drawdown since, November time, right? So it makes sense. The logic stands, right? The logic holds in that you may not have as much money pouring into the market or supporting price in the month of, November and especially December. Okay. All right. Let me see here. Oh, so this is one of the big topics that I know everybody's discussing about this whole Evergrande situation and the impact that it has on China and maybe even global equities. I spoke about this a little while back, and I personally don't think that this is going to be such a big. I don't think this is going to be a big event, to be honest, because the Chinese government has already been able to contain Evergrande, right? And for the most part, Evergrande is not this huge player that's going to start breaking down, global equity markets. Okay, it's already, the news is spread. We already know what happened for Evergrande. This was like way back in October, right? So by the time it's December time, like everything is expected already. The sharp sell-off that we had when this news dropped, I mean, it got recovered in the span of 1 week, if y'all remember. So I personally don't think it's going to be anything substantial. I don't think it's going to have a global equity impact. And to be completely honest, I don't think China is that big of a player, especially one company within China like Evergrande, to start pulling down, global equities, especially within the US, because the US markets are, much more deeper, liquid. And to be honest, they just have significantly more money and probably, way better diversification in their portfolio all through the US and all through the world. So I don't think they're going to just panic out of their positions just because some, silly company from China, Evergrande, messed up on a lot of their real estate deals. Okay. So that's kind of my thought process. So yeah, I don't really think we're going to see any significant impact or effect. The largest effect, which I've often talked about, is probably going to be due to interest rates if they do get hiked by the Fed, if tapering is further exacerbated. If y'all remember, Jay Powell has talked about the tapering being accelerated. So that's one thing, obviously, the market is considering. I don't think there's going to be any issues in the Fed policy changes. And I don't think that, value overall, value stocks or value within even crypto is going to start outperforming, innovation or high tech and growth stocks. Okay. Unemployment, I wouldn't really worry about. But yeah, for the most part, I think all things look good in terms of this checklist, which I started at the beginning of the year. All right. So there's a question here. Just tell me if the suffering is slowly ending. And can I risk my home on a giga long? Obviously not financial advice, but I personally wouldn't, at least not for December time. I would say December is one of those months where honestly, it is the holiday time. Just go enjoy it with your family. You can keep your spot positions, which I have. I still have, in my 5K account, I told y'all that I still retain my spot position in Matic. Okay. We've grown this account all the way to about 31, 32K now. And right now I'm putting my eggs in that Matic basket. Okay. And I don't think that there's going to be any significant concerns till the end of the year. But what I will say is there may be some rocky volatility up and down, which is gonna, want to make you kind of puke your position. But I really would not consider leverage, or at least high leverage, right now. Again, not investment advice, but that's how I would play it. I'd wait till the beginning of the year. Let's see, what players at the beginning of the year are starting to line themselves up for future success. Also, you want to see what kind of narratives are coming up, right? Something that I've spoken about within crypto is narratives. How do they unfold? How do they start? What are the narratives that could pick up and have more upside? So, for example, one of the narratives that I pay attention to is within Spell, right? It's a low cost altcoin that's trying to compete with your staking and farming protocols like Trader Joe, like all this other stuff, like even I wouldn't say Aave, but I think Curve Finance is one of the potential competitors. I mean, there's many competitors like Spell that are going to come up, but I think Spell has a unique advantage in that they are Ethereum based. I think they're going to do relatively well. I also think that there are a lot of smart backers who keep talking about Spell as a platform that they like using and that they want to pay attention to. So that's one, right? The other assets that I like to keep an eye on, obviously, gaming, metaverse protocols, Axie Infinity, obviously top tier. Mana, which is another one, which is within the metaverse space. Sand, again, gaming, metaverse, right? These are all the assets that I'm kind of keeping an eye on as a next narrative for 2022. Okay. And by the way, the US markets are open, so let's check it out real quick. Let me see here. Okay, so it looks like just opened down just a little bit. I'm going to check a few assets. Let's check Amazon today. Amazon opening down. Let's check Tesla. We're going to check a few growth and tech names. Tesla, I figured Tesla is going to try to cover this gap, just inefficiency right here. Let me see here. Let's check Salesforce. Yeah, Salesforce still down quite a bit. I mean, down about 14% from the highs. Let's see here. Let's check Walmart. Walmart's trying to push its way into the delivery service, start drones, start utilizing more tech. Let me see. Let's check Zoom. Yeah, Zoom got beat up from the beginning of the year, or end of last year, rather. All right. Yeah, I think for the most part, market's opening up okay. All right, Tezos with fib extensions. Okay, let's check it out. Okay, one thing I'll say about Tezos is that it is very, very hard to trust Tezos in a pump. I held Tezos back in 2018 and 19. It was really painful, and I'm never going to make that mistake again. So whenever it does happen where I see pumps like this, I'm always paranoid, but that's just me. I will say regarding Tezos, sitting above this $3.59 high, very good sign. As long as it stays above this high, it can easily start trending up higher, because guess what? You have this, news that's coming up about Tezos, which is it's supposed to be sort of a NFT, platform that's going to start coming up, and Ubisoft, okay, is going to start using Tezos as their blockchain of preference for their, new NFT and gaming projects. I don't know why. I feel like it's a terrible mistake, but what the hell do I know, right? This is good news, though. This is a very promising news for Tezos, given the fact that they're kind of a non-player. Like in any part of crypto, they're really not doing anything substantial. So when you have some recognition like Ubisoft using Tezos, that's big. That's, a fundamental catalyst that could easily drive it higher. Now, what I will say is, from an SR level, I wouldn't touch until it gets above $6.10 and smashes above that level. Until then, it could still trade in this range between $6 and 4 down here for another month, probably. But if I were to take a look at extensions, right, local extensions for fibs, I'd say, okay, you can look at it from this perspective, this high to this low, or you could look at it from a more local fib extension, which is from that high to this local low. If we believe that this is the end of one cycle, right? So one wave count, and this is the start of a new wave count, then we have to map out our fib extensions from this high to this low, in which case the 1.618 extension and 2.0, which I've spoken about, are generally the initial levels I look forward to. That's around 12.7 and about $15, right? It's as simple as that. But once again, as long as it doesn't get above this area, I would expect possibly a range to develop like this. Okay. So be careful. Okay. All right. That's all I got. I don't think I have anything else I want to cover. Yeah, SNX, I already covered this yesterday, but one more time. So one thing about SNX, Wi-Fi, all these different assets, right? Like, look at Wi-Fi, look at how it looks. It topped in May, basically down, 60, 70% since then. Even FLM topped in April, down almost 50 to 60%. Compound topped in May, down at least 60 to 70%. A lot of these assets, they were not able to put in new all-time highs. Okay, they've been basically in like a larger sell-off mode, a larger distribution mode for almost the entire year, really, or at least the second half of the year, and that's not good, right? So point is, like, we would probably expect a lot of these assets to get beat up further, because there's just no reason why we should recognize that Aave and Compound are just going to get spontaneous bids in the market until maybe they start reaching lower. Maybe they drop another 50% from here, and maybe at that point they start becoming a little bit more attractive, right? Even Sushi, which I was a big fan of, my God, from the highs up here around 22, 23, it's down to $5, right? Or it was down closer to $4 just a week ago. So it's down like, 50, 60, 70%. Same thing with like, Uni, same thing, right? But something interesting happening in the Sushi front, which is that, Sushi has its CEO, Joseph DeLong, he's stepping down as CTO. Okay. The CTO stepping down could mean that maybe, I don't know, the technology and the vision of the project is going to be in better hands. Maybe there's potential and promise for the future for Sushi. That could be really good. Right. So all these things coming up should give us an indication that Sushi might make a change, but it ain't reflected in price just yet. It could easily head lower, probably another 50% lower if it happens. Okay. So that's about it, folks. That's all I got. Thank you so much for watching again. Make sure you join our Discord. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this YouTube video. I really appreciate it. Come hang out with us in the Discord channel. Let's talk about crypto. Let's talk about all the stuff that we're looking forward to in 2022. And I hope to see a lot of y'all soon. All right. Cheers.